Coming up on Arirang News, South Korea kicks off its biggest annual retail event, the Korea Sale Festa. It's bigger than ever before, offering discounts on everything from electronics and cars to clothing and cosmetics. South Korea introduces a more detailed system of social distancing. There are 5 levels now, so measures can be tailored to different regions and businesses can open to the greatest extent possible. And former President Lee Myung-bak starts serving a 17-year prison sentence for bribery and embezzlement. He'd appealed the sentence, but it was upheld last week by the Supreme Court. It's 5 p.m. here in Seoul. Thanks for tuning into Arirang News. I'm Devin Whiting. South Korea on this Monday has reported fewer than 100 cases of COVID-19 for the first time in 6 days. Most were in the Seoul area. Over the weekend, the government announced a new set of rules for social distancing that it says will better reflect the country's actual disease control needs and enable more shops to do business. Kim Yeon-sung has the details.
The South Korean government on Sunday announced its new 5-stage social distancing measures.
We are dividing the social distancing rules further from 3 levels into 5 to better reflect reality. We are also redesigning our disease prevention measures in a tailored fashion to make them more effective.
The 5-level system will take effect from Saturday, November 7th. The government will take into account the weekly average of daily COVID-19 cases to decide which level of social distancing measures will apply. Level 1 social distancing measures apply on a regional basis if the daily average is below 100 cases in the capital area or below 30 in other regions. If there are more than 100 daily cases on average in the capital region, the rules will be raised a notch to level 1.5. If there are over 300 cases nationally, the whole country will be put under level 2 measures. 400 to 500 national cases will prompt level 2.5 measures. And between 800 and 1,000 daily cases will result in level 3 measures. The new measures will also intend to provide some relief to local businesses that have been suffering the most due to the pandemic. For example, PC rooms had been previously categorized as a high-risk facility, and under level 2.5 rules, they were forced to temporarily shut down. The new measures separate facilities into those that need intensive monitoring and those that require normal monitoring. PC rooms are categorized as the latter, so they are now allowed to operate even under level 2.5, just not after 9 p.m. And under level 2 measures, PC rooms can fully operate as long as they have barriers between the seats and visitors wear masks indoors. Kim Yeon-sung, Arirang News.
Former South Korean President Lee Myung-bak was taken to a temporary cell today, the Supreme Court last week having upheld his sentence of 17 years in prison. He was found guilty in 2018 of embezzlement and bribery. Then he appealed and lost. He was taken this afternoon to the Seoul Dongbu Detention Center, the same place he was held for a year after his conviction until he was released on bail. According to procedure, he would be moved to a prison in 3 to 4 weeks, but there's a possibility that he serves his remaining 16 years in the detention center instead. President Moon Jae-in said today that the South Korean economy is showing signs of recovery, and he promised efforts to make the country a model for economic growth. In a meeting with his top aides on Monday, Moon attributed their recovery to strong manufacturing, citing recent economic data. South Korea's GDP grew in the third quarter by 1.9% from the quarter before, the fastest expansion in a decade, while industrial output and exports have also recently picked up steam.
4분기에도 경제 반등의 추세를 이어나간다면 내년 상반기부터 우리 경제는 코로나의 충격을 만회하고 정상 궤도로 진입할 수 있을 것입니다.
Moon vowed continued efforts to revive the economy by supporting the country's businesses and reforming the manufacturing sector through the Korean New Deal initiative. However, he noted that it's too early for South Korea to let down its guard, noting the continued sporadic cases of COVID-19 and the pandemic's resurgence in Europe. He urged everyone to be thorough in their efforts to stop the virus under the new 5-tier social distancing scheme. South Korea's biggest annual retail event, the Korea Sale Festa, kicked off on Sunday. The aim is to give the sector and the economy as a whole a much-needed boost. Our Min Soo-kyun reports.
This year's Korea Sale Festa kicked off on Sunday, and it's larger than any of the previous events since the Sales Festival's launch in 2016. Around 1,600 major retailers, manufacturers, and distributors across the country are taking part, more than twice as many as last year. During the festival, from November 1st to 15th, shoppers can enjoy discounts on a wide range of products, including clothes and cosmetics. Under the name Korea Fashion Market, major department stores and outlets have already started offering up to 90% discounts on clothes and fashion accessories. Best-selling electronic appliances such as refrigerators and laptops are up to 40% off, while household furniture has been reduced by 10 to 50%.
There's also special deals for cars, as 5 automakers, including Hyundai Motor, are offering special promotions.
Major online stores are offering discounts of up to 60% in a bid to attract purchases from both local and overseas shoppers. And local traditional markets are also joining the festival.
The country has about 1,694 traditional markets. Of those, around 640 are taking part this year. It would be a great help if people shop at these markets during this period.
This year's event is expected to boost domestic spending and help the retail sector recover after being hit hard by the fallout from COVID-19. Min Soo-kyun, Arirang News.
South Korea's airline industry in October saw the smallest decline since the pandemic began, thanks to a series of holidays and more relaxed social distancing. And almost all of the rebound was from domestic flights. According to the Transport Ministry, domestic flights in October were taken by 5.5 million passengers, compared to fewer than 130,000 on international. Domestic passengers, compared to the previous month, were up a whopping 48.4%. That led to the smallest on-year decline at 48% since the start of the pandemic. Time now for an in-depth look at the market news this afternoon, and for that I'm joined on the line by Dr. Yang Jun-seok, Professor of Economics at the Catholic University of Korea. Professor Yang, good to have you back on today.
Happy to be here.
Well, stocks on Wall Street are coming off their worst week since March. Futures pointing to a positive open, though, on Monday. Korean shares did close higher today. What's the story in the markets?
Okay, well, last week was a pretty bad week for almost all the major stock indices around the world. As you mentioned, the U.S. had a really bad week last week. Taking the week as a whole, Dow went down by minus 6.5%. S&P went down by minus 5.6%. NASDAQ went down by minus 5.5%. Even the tech stocks are falling. They did not meet the expectations that the analysts had for their profit. So it's kind of surprising. The analysts seem to be over-expecting a lot of these returns. We saw that in China last week as well. They actually did fairly well, but it just didn't measure up to perhaps the analysts' over-expectation. But also, one of the contributing factors to the falling market is probably the uncertainty with the U.S. elections. There has been a lot of disturbance in important states for the election. For example, Pennsylvania is one or two most important states that the President Trump and Vice President Biden are fighting over, and there has been a shooting incident in Philadelphia concerning the police shooting a young black man. North Carolina police used pepper gas to break up get out the vote movement by African Americans, and North Carolina, again, is an important state. So the stock market seems to be reflecting the general unease of the presidential election in the United States. The EU indices are down as well, probably because they are going. Most of the major European countries, UK, Germany, France, are either in lockdown already or going into lockdown, and the uncertainty with the U.S. election is probably feeding the market there as well. Now, Asia They had a very bad week last week. Hang Seng, Shanghai, Nikkei all fell last week, but they seem to be doing well today, so maybe the U.S. market and the European market will rise today as well. The Kospi, it was down last week, but it's also up today. It went up by 1.46% today. Kosdaq, it's one of the few stock indices which had a roller coaster ride, but it did end up higher last week. And today it rose even further. It rose by 1.30%, but global markets as a whole, they seem to be taking a wait-and-see attitude with the U.S. elections.
Well, now in Korea, we see that exports were down in October compared to a year earlier, as might be expected, but the daily average in terms of exports was the highest it's been in more than a year. That was the case in terms of shipments to the U.S., China, the EU, and ASEAN. Tell us about that.
Okay, well, we sort of expected this when we had the earlier result 10 days ago. From October 1st to October 20th, exports were down by minus 5.8% and imports were down by minus 2.8%. It turned out for the entire October that the exports fell by 6.6% and imports fell by minus 5.8%. But remember that we had two less working days in October because Chuseok came extraordinarily late, whereas in the previous years, Chuseok was mostly in September. So if you take the daily exports, then it rose by plus 5.6%, which is the largest increase we saw in 9 months, a largest increase in 2 years. And the trade surplus was $5.98 billion US dollars. We saw fairly major increases in semiconductors, biohealth, which went up by whopping 47.4%, home electronics, computers, batteries, and notably display. It recorded plus 5.2% in October, whereas it has been falling for the last 26 months. Now, the sort of the bad news in this October report is petroleum products. It's due to the continuing low price of oil. It fell by 50.1%. But region-wise, Korea recorded an increase in exports to U.S. and EU. U.S. and EU were coming off of very solid recoveries. Third quarter U.S. growth rate at plus 7.4%. Third quarter EU growth of plus 12.7%. But somewhat worryingly, China, exports to China has fallen by 5.7%, even though they had a fairly good recovery. And then the very worrying part is, as mentioned earlier, EU is going into lockdown. U.S. has the highest recorded infection of coronavirus. So fourth quarter exports are starting to get a little worried.
Well, it's election day this coming Tuesday in America. We'll be seeing results here Korea time in Wednesday afternoon or so. Hopefully we'll know very soon who's going to be president. But that and what else is on our radar this week? Okay, well, most people are not expecting the results of U.S. presidential elections to be decided early, so we may not know the winner for days. For Korean statistics, there's consumer price index coming up and current account coming up for September. Now, for the foreign statistics, not only is there a U.S. presidential election, but there's a Fed FOMC meeting November 4th to 5th. But we don't expect any major changes because they usually don't change the monetary policy right after presidential elections unless there's a serious problem. And then on Friday, we'll see the U.S. unemployment and wage data to see whether the U.S. is on a solid path to recovery or what many people worry that U.S. recovery seems to be dying down because of the coronavirus. All right, Professor, we'll look forward to catching up again later this week. Thanks so much for your insights today.
Thank you.
The channel you're now watching, Arirang TV, has signed an MOU with the Korea Trade and Investment Promotion Agency, or KOTRA, to work together producing programs to boost Korea's exports and promote investment in the country. At the signing ceremony today, the head of KOTRA said he expects joint programs to help Korean businesses reach a global audience.
I believe Arirang TV and KOTRA share the common goals of promoting not only locally but globally. We have done our best to identify the goals shared by Arirang TV and KOTRA, and I hope we can work well together to maximize the benefit to our country and local businesses.
The pandemic, of course, has made video content even more important as a marketing channel for exports. Arirang and KOTRA plan to hold events like Invest Korea Week and to help local businesses find export routes by featuring them on Arirang TV programs. KOTRA's trade offices in more than 80 countries will help Arirang expand its own global network. That brings us to the end of this newscast. Thank you for watching. More live news coming your way at 7 p.m. Korea time.